So hey everybody, my name's Oliver Radcliffe. I'm here with Josh Hickok and Ken Marlin. We're just kind of doing a get to know you here with Ken, and really kind of want to just jump right in and say hi Ken, and let's talk about your background a little bit.
No, yeah, I appreciate you guys giving me the time to spread some knowledge a little bit of. My name is Ken Marlin. I'm the Microsoft Supplier Alliance Manager here on the AIS, or the Aero Solutions, Aero Intelligence Solutions division with Aero. I've been with Aero about 6 years, and my focus is strictly on the Windows IoT, the edge space, or the Windows IoT operating system licenses. And so trying to reach out to other divisions of Aero and basically get the word out about Windows IoT, and basically give you guys an avenue of who to contact and who to come to when it comes to Windows IoT.
When it comes to Windows IoT, would that be you then, Ken? Are you a good place to kind of start that
Yeah,
conversation?
correct. I do have a person named Henry Castillo that works for me, that manages a team inbox. And so we do have a lot of marketing materials. We have an Aero Microsoft website. We also have my YouTube channel, where we promote and get the word out about Windows IoT. And a lot of those locations have email addresses and links that navigate you back to either myself or Henry. We're the two lead people that manage helping people with the Windows IoT products.
From my perspective, when I think of Microsoft, I don't necessarily think IoT. Off the top of my head, I think of things like, maybe industrial controls, or I think of like little mini Linux kernels or Unix kernels from the 70s or 80s that have been running disconnected from the internet for a long time. How wrong am I? And then what is Microsoft doing in this space?
Yeah, it's they've got some new exciting stuff in this space, especially using the ARM processor. So that's another product that recently launched, which is basically Windows 10 IoT Enterprise, LTSC 2021 on ARM. It's one of the longest product names in history, I think, that I get to say every day. But they now have a full version of Windows that will run on an ARM processor, and specifically the NXP IMX8 family. And that's something that we're really trying to get the word out, because today we have different divisions of Aero that help customers with smaller IoT devices and boards and SOMs and things like that. And in a lot of cases, they are running Linux on those devices. But now Microsoft has an option with their Windows 10 IoT Enterprise family that will run on the IMX8 ARM processor. But in addition to that, obviously, x86 Intel processors, pretty much anything that Windows will run on there, Windows IoT will run on there. And strangely enough, my biggest competitor is Windows Pro. And so we've got a big campaign going right now with the end of life of Windows 10 Professional that just went end of life recently. And so a lot of customers are not ready to move to Windows 11. And so that's our opportunity. If they are building an appliance, fixed purpose device, they really should be using the Windows IoT, not the Windows Pro. And so this is a really good opportunity for us to go after those customers who aren't ready to move to Windows 11 and want to stay with Windows 10 for many, many more years, which it will be available in the IoT space.
Cool. Like an opportunity to kind of fix what they're doing today and move that into like a proper.
Yeah. What I run into a lot is customers who either are not aware that Windows IoT isn't even an option. They haven't heard of it yet. That's where I actually started the YouTube channel, because when people start searching the web, we obviously have some paid search campaigns that drive you to our Aero site. But in addition to that, we have my YouTube channel, which typically through organic means pops up on people's searches and drives them to learn more about Windows IoT. But I know we're going to provide the link to the channel. But if you go check out the channel, I have tons of videos that introduces you to the Windows IoT channel, and we'll show you, do you qualify are you qualified to buy it? There is a legal agreement involved, and I have videos that explain that legal agreement. And I run into a lot of customers who just, when they buy a device that's going to be an appliance, it might come with Windows Pro. And so they just decide to stick with that. And
Sure.
in many cases, that can be a big mistake because you don't have the full control over Windows updates, and you're constantly being moved to the newer build versions of Windows 10. And in this case, you're going to be moved to right along to Windows 11 Pro if you're running Windows 10 Pro today. And so if you've designed your app around Windows 10 and you want it to run for years, the IoT is a much better product to go with.
So
Cool.
that leads me, I guess, to my next line of questioning is, given that there are these use cases out there that are sort of hidden, I guess, what's the profile first of an end customer who'd benefit from working in this program? And then two, I guess, what's a second part, which we'll get to in a sec. What does a good partner look like who works with these customers?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to qualify, you have to be an OEM that is building, manufacturing, and marketing and selling a fixed purpose dedicated appliance. And so what is that? I mean, that can be anything from gaming to medical to industrial controllers to digital signage to video surveillance, security surveillance. It's a very, very wide open space, and probably a sort of a catch-22, because I have customers who aren't sure if their device qualifies or if their company qualifies. And so, in those situations, I say, come to me and let's talk through it, because there are some strange ones, and there's a lot of misconceptions about, we can talk about some of those. One of them is it's a stripped down version that's difficult to load and difficult to learn. And that's not the case. It's a full-blown version of Windows 10 that does have some things that are consumer focused removed from it, such as the Xbox and weather and news and things like that have been pulled out. But otherwise, it is full Windows. Will run on any x86 box as well as certain ARM processors now. And the other one we get is that it's difficult to lock down or to manage, and that's not the case at all. It's actually really, really easy to control Windows updates and lock it down, which is also one I get, which is what if I don't want to lock it down? And that's completely allowed as well. So some people think that the IoT version is required that you lock it down so that you don't see the desktop. And that's not the case at all. You actually do not have to lock it down. The license terms are very flexible, because Microsoft doesn't know what sort of device you're going to build. And now, absolutely, it's in the benefit of the OEM to lock it down to some degree, because they're going to have to support the device if the end user messes it up.
Right.
So some lockdown is obviously a benefit, but it's not a requirement. It's not part of the terms. And so you can basically, it comes down to what the OEM is building and selling it as. Also, the OEM is not on the hook for what an end user ultimately does with the machine. I've had some OEMs say, well, I can't control what my end customer does, so I don't want to sign that agreement that says, it's going to be this, because what happens if they turn around and use it in a regular general purpose fashion? The OEM is not on the hook for what the end user does. It's the OEM is on the hook for how they market and sell it. So,
okay. So, Ken, just to kind of put this in context for some of the folks that might be, watching this from, our page, which is kind of primarily CSP focused, cloud subscription based, that sort of motion. How does Windows IoT differ from, like a software subscription, like modern work, Microsoft 365 sort of?
So 98% of our OEMs are going to be shipping a physical hardware box. And then the other 2%, we have a virtual appliance option, where some OEMs are moving to a virtual machine as an appliance. But all of those physical boxes that are going to be running Windows IoT, our goal ultimately is to have those connected to the Azure cloud and connected for Azure services. So it's absolutely a benefit in the CSP space to sell those services to either manage or monitor or control those IoT edge devices.
Sure. So you'd be using maybe a CSP Azure subscription to host your Azure IoT services, and then you'd have your OEM IoT licenses out on those physical machines, kind of throughout
That's right.
whatever environment. Okay.
That's correct.
Cool.
Yeah. So you license the physical edge device and then use subscriptions for the other services to connect to that IoT device.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So I guess one other question would be, what sort of partners do we in fact work with? And what I'm wondering is, maybe in the audience today, there are some CSP partners who are inadvertently in the space. You mentioned digital signage, but certainly those people who go to an office building and they do kind of everything ground up when it comes to IT, and maybe they're just maybe almost misusing a Windows Home licensed little mini USB stick computer, whatever those are. So I guess is what I'm asking is, do you find that a lot? Like, one, like, oh, we should have been involved here. We are a sort of integrator of some sorts, should have been working here. And two, maybe you could talk about the process of getting started with us, what that looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of times when customers come to us, the first thing is trying to figure out if they qualify or not. And the first questions we ask are, is it going to be a general purpose use or a dedicated appliance? And then the next question comes, are you reselling it or using it internally? And now I think a lot of your customers are selling to end users that might be using the services internally. And on our side of the house, we are selling typically to OEMs that are building appliances that they're going to be reselling. But a lot of times I will have customers come to us actually from our competitors like CDW, Insight, or Soft Choice, and they're looking for Windows IoT. And in many cases, not only do they want the Windows IoT edge, but they also want the cloud services. So there's some connectivity there. But ultimately, we have to determine, are you using this internally, or are you selling to someone who's using it internally, or are you an OEM that's building something that you're going to resell? And that's kind of key for the Windows IoT space, is because there is a legal agreement involved. You're signing an agreement with Microsoft to become an indirect OEM, which is going to build, sell, market, sell, and support a dedicated device that, not for internal use and not for general purpose use.
Okay, that makes sense. So kind of to summarize, so this is basically for an OEM to build something, right? So not necessarily if I need an IoT license and I think maybe I need an IoT license, so I would go buy it that. But for an OEM to kind of build some new solution.
Yeah, correct. In fact, one of the most common ones we get is there's a product called Windows 10 Enterprise LTSC versus the product we sell, which is Windows 10 IoT Enterprise LTSC. And that product is the non-IoT version is available through the CSP channel as an upgrade and typically used for internal use systems, similar to what our Aero but our work systems use, which is an enterprise class operating system, right? And those products are upgrades, so the system already has to have a full OEM license. And the LTSC version gets 5 years of support, where the IoT version LTSC gets 10 years of support.
Oh.
And again, the difference is internal use versus an appliance. And so we're always determining, that's the very first thing we're asking, internal, general purpose, dedicated appliance. Dedicated appliance would be IoT. General goes the other direction.
So kind of differentiated the two licenses maybe by support length. You said 5 versus 10 years. What are some other differences or reasons why you wouldn't use, I'm just going to call it like the standard license versus IoT?
Yeah. No, I'll give you a real world example. I had a customer in a digital signage environment. They were actually going to be setting up digital signage, 250 displays in a sports arena. Okay. And so I sat down with them. We had a half-hour discussion on Windows Pro versus Windows IoT. And ultimately, they made the decision to go with Pro because it came already on the systems they were buying. Even though the IoT was going to give them longer life, longer support, way more better control over the Windows updates, the patches, the security updates, you're going to be able to lock it down and control the device further. And there's other benefits such as a single product key and easier activation.
Sure.
All of those benefits, they decided to stick with Pro. So a month goes by and I get a phone call and they want to place an order for 250 of the Windows IoT licenses. And so I said, what happened? What made you change your mind and stuff? And they said, well, we installed all the units in the sports arena, and on opening night in the middle of a sporting event, we got a pop-up on the screen on 250 displays in the arena.
That's a bummer.
And that was simply because they had no control to prevent that from happening. Where with Windows IoT, you can absolutely prevent that from happening.
So measure twice, cut once kind of thing. Check with you about the IoT licenses if there's any kind of question about it, right?
Yeah. So for them, they didn't have keyboard and monitor or mouse and keyboard to go fix that.
Right.
And they ultimately had to re-image all those systems and get the correct license on them, which again is a digital signage. It should have been Windows IoT from the beginning. And that's the kind of thing we run into. It's absolutely far more benefits to go with the Windows IoT than sticking with the Pro. And sometimes, it takes something like that to change someone else's mind. But ultimately, try to use the IoT when it's an appliance.
Awesome. So we've kind of covered a lot of topics today, and I know that while we just briefly touched on some of this, you've been doing this for a while, and luckily for everybody, really, you've been documenting really a lot of these topics on YouTube for the world to kind of consume. So I'm going to, again, throw this up down below so that people can go find you. Your channel is called Windows Champ. It sounds like, if I go on there and I search something IoT, you're usually pretty close to the top. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Maybe just take a minute and talk about what you do there, what people can expect, why they should hit that subscribe button.
Yeah, I've been supporting the Windows Embedded / IoT products for about 23 years now. And it was about 10 years ago that I started this YouTube channel. And it was mainly, again, to help spread the word on Windows IoT, because Microsoft, if you try to find the actual Windows IoT product page from Microsoft, it is very difficult. And of course, we would get the same questions over and over again. So I started answering these questions on the YouTube channel. And over the years, it's definitely grown. I'm almost to 2,000 subscribers now. And so I'm really making that push to get to 2,000 subscribers. And hopefully we'll keep going from there. But it's been an awesome project because it allows, another avenue for customers to find information on Windows IoT and get their answers quickly and easily. And we use it for internal training purposes. Customers, when they get new employees, they use it for their training purposes. If you want to learn what is Windows IoT, how is it licensed, how do you qualify? Can you buy it? All of those kind of things are out there on my YouTube channel.
Awesome. That's really exciting. And one last time too, I'm going to throw up on the bottom that this is the way, if anybody watching has more questions, wants to get started, they want to reach out to somebody here at Arrow, where we do have a team of experts. Again, arrow.com/winiot is the link down there at the bottom. And we really appreciate you coming on today, Ken. This was fun. I learned a lot. We work primarily in, modern work in Azure in the CSP program. So even though we're all Microsoft aligned, there's entire worlds that we haven't explored yet. So we really appreciate you hopping on and just spending a couple minutes with us today.
No, I appreciate you guys having me and giving me the opportunity. And yeah, I know you guys in your customer base, you come across a lot of edge devices, and we just wanted to make sure they had an avenue to someone that could help them with the edge licensing. So great. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.